Our first topic, the Denver City Council voted this week to officially change the second Monday in October to Indigenous Peoples Day, which would replace Columbus Day. Meanwhile, amidst one of the largest gatherings of Native Americans happening now in North Dakota, there will likely be competing protests during the Columbus Day parade this weekend. Patty, Westward has covered this issue really well over the years, especially this week. Take it away.
Well, it's fascinating that Colorado was the first state to make Columbus Day a holiday back in 1907, and we are still debating it politely without interrupting, at least until tomorrow's parade. What's really fascinating this year is there's a new generation of American Indian leaders in Colorado who are going to be leading the protest. We talked to Glenn Morris, who was long the spokesperson for it, and this is a group of Indigenous women who are, it's gay, lesbian, transgender, that's twin spirit, I think, inclusive, and they are fighting the pipeline issue. They were up in on the reservation doing that. They're back in Denver. They are going to be leading the protest against the Columbus Day parade, which might be the worst publicized parade in the history of the world. I don't think it's because of because they're concerned that people are going to protest. I think they just have bad PR people. Every year we can never find out when it is. But tomorrow we will have protests landing at the Capitol at 1:30, and we will have a Columbus Day parade somewhere downtown. And we will have Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday. But Denver long ago gave up actually making it a real holiday because they switched it off with Cesar Chavez Day.
David, at the end of the day, is this a big deal? There's still going to be a parade. There's still going to be protests at the parade. I'm not really sure if anyone cares what the city of Denver calls it, but I could be wrong. What do you think?
Well, when you see the bills in the legislature every year by Representative Salazar, you get a lot of people testifying, and kudos to the legislature for making those things available by audio so you can actually listen to it, as I did last time around. There were good arguments on both sides. Many of the people who want to get rid of Columbus Day say, oh, we're all in favor of Italians having their own day. We just don't want it to be for Columbus because while he was a great navigator, he was also he enslaved some of the Taino Indians who were the first ones he met, and they, unlike the Arawaks who he later met, the Tainos were completely peaceful and innocent, and undeserving of his malicious dealings and unfair dealings with them. So you want to do something for Italians and you don't want it to be Columbus. Here's the compromise: Antonin Scalia Day. We just named the day after him. He's one of the greatest, most successful, most influential Italian Americans. I mean, probably one of the most 5 influential justices in the history of the U.S. Supreme Court. Just name it for him. And he's never done anything bad to Indians. Never enslaved anyone. Didn't capture people. On this pipeline issue, the fact is this pipeline in North Dakota doesn't go through any tribal land, not 1 inch. It's private property, which didn't use eminent domain. They all made voluntary agreements with the property owners. It follows existing pipeline paths. The case was argued before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals just earlier this week. We'll see what they have to say. But the only plausible legal argument is the federal government has some obligations for some of that land to consult with the Indians. Well, there have been 398 meetings, so perhaps that'll be considered sufficient consultation.
Eric, the city of Denver makes a statement by changing this day, but it's not a holiday, even as Indigenous Peoples Day. It's not going to be a holiday. So does it make much of an impact?
It shows that morals change as time moves on. I happen to object to the notion that you have to hold people accountable in today's mores for things that happened hundreds of years ago. I think that's a mistake, but I don't have any problem with morals moving on and reflecting current values, so I'm fine with that. I think David had the right idea of not doing it for Columbus Day, but he has the wrong person. And Scalia, I don't think this is going to go through an Obama White House or a Hillary Clinton White House. How about Joe Pesci Day? I think that's something that we could all rally around, talk about a great Italian American here. In terms of the pipeline, poke fun at David, but I largely agree with David. This oil and gas is not staying in the ground, despite what some, not necessarily Native American activists, but activists on the environmental for activists left would like, which is to somehow just fight the whole fossil fuel everything that fossil fuel has done for economic growth in the Western world. This oil and gas is not staying in the ground. It is coming out of the ground. The question is, how do you transport it? Do you transport it by pipeline, or do you transport it by rail and road? The number of incidents and accidents by rail and road hugely dwarf the number of pipeline incidents there have been. So to me, this strikes as feel-good symbolism. Let's protest against fossil fuels at any opportunity. But this pipeline has been well vetted. As David points out, the Native Americans really do not have a legitimate gripe, but yet this whole thing has been stirred up, as everything does, and you wonder why in this country we can't deal with infrastructure, because whenever anyone tries to deal with major infrastructure, the process and ultimately the litigation becomes endless.
Kara, as you see what the city of Denver did, I mean, the city of Denver has a strong tradition both with a lot of cultures, Native Americans, Hispanics, Italians. A lot of the Denver Italians, frankly, have moved on to the suburbs. That's where my family is at. Although I'm not really sure I would celebrate Anton Scalia Day or Joe Pesci Day, I'd probably go with Amerigo Vespucci. We named 2 continents after the guy, so I'm figuring that won't be so bad. But what do you think about the impact of what the city of Denver decided this week, the council?
Well, first of all, I'm on record for Bobby De Niro. I think Bobby De Niro, I mean, he could really bring some, oomph to the day, I think. But
a little bit.
As far as here in Denver and Indigenous Peoples Day, I think it is a feel-good gesture, of course. And I think that many in the Latino community would prefer to have something with a bit more of an action component. You just mentioned the move to the suburbs by so many of our Italian American neighbors, and it's interesting because I just this week wrote a story about this year's Richard T. Castro distinguished professor at Metropolitan State University, and Laura Gomez. And Laura is I should call her Dr. Gomez, is much of her research has been done on the concept of manifest destiny and the removal and displacement of so many of the indigenous peoples in the 1800s and Mexican Americans. And one of the issues that they're focusing on so strongly over in Highland next week and in other parts of traditionally Latino neighborhoods is a modern day concept of manifest destiny, which is gentrification, and the removal of so many of the Latino and displacement of so many of the traditionally Latino communities in Denver. West Denver, Globeville, and Elyria Swansea are heavily Latino neighborhoods that are seriously being threatened by big money developers coming in. And so it'll be interesting to see whether the city council and the Denver city government is willing to actually put their money where their mouth is in terms of doing more than just feel-good, renaming of days, and actually address a very real situation that's, has some parallels to what's going on now.